Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is the fourth part of a five-part series specifically designed for new members and even existing members that might be trying out BNI Connect for the first time. And what we're doing is over the course of about a week or so, we're really discovering all the different areas of BNI Connect. So the very first day, we talked about your profile and where your profile shows up and how to update it and some good things to put in your profile. The second day, we talked about the online slips, so how to enter referrals and one-to-ones and thank you for closed business and CEUs, how to enter all that into BNI Connect so you can track it on an ongoing basis. Yesterday, we talked about all of the social media networking components of BNI Connect. So the ability to connect with any other BNI member around the world, about 190,000 active users around the world. And then today we're going to talk about the member tools and reports. So what we're going to do is we are going to go dive a little bit deeper into BNI Connect in order to discover some of the kind of like the hidden elements beyond the home screen. Tomorrow is the last part of our series, and we're going to be talking about inviting and registering visitors in BNI Connect. So we're going to go through that whole process. We'll touch upon it a little bit today, but tomorrow we'll go in depth with that. So before we get started with that, just a couple of real quick housekeeping things. The first is that this is a live webinar. So as usual, if you have any questions whatsoever, please ask those questions as we're going along. If you type it into the questions panel, I'll see it pop up on my screen and I'll be able to answer that question as we're going through the material today. We're also going to be recording this session, so it will be made available in a couple of different places on the support site. You can always get to the support site by clicking on this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect. When you do that, it will take you to the support site. You'll see our list of webinars, and you'll see a whole bunch of director guides and chapter training and documentation, and you'll see our list of recorded webinars. You'll be able to review any of the monthly webinars there. And you can go and watch them here on this site, or you can go directly to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. If you'd like to be notified when we upload new videos, please go ahead and subscribe to that channel. All right, then we're scheduled for, this is going to take about 25 to 30 minutes to go through the session today. That being said, I will be happy to stay on this call until every single question is answered. So please do feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like to, and we will go over those today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, again, we're going to be talking about some tools and reports that are in the system that I feel really can enhance your membership here in BNI. In order to get to some of these, though, we are going to have to go beyond the home screen. We're going to have to go into some of the menu items that are located along the top of the screen. Before we do that, there is one very important report that's right here on the home screen. Aside from all of the reviewing your slips report, which gives you a ton of detailed information, and the fact that you have your My BNI Business snapshot here that shows you the last 12 months and lifetime of your membership, there is a report here called the My Personal Participation Report, which you can access by clicking on the link here, the My Personal Participation Report. What this is this will give you a week-by-week history of all of your activity in your chapter. So whether or not you're submitting paper referral slips at the chapter meeting or you're utilizing the online slips system, this should have all of that data in there. And it will tell you week by week, were you present, were you absent, were you late, medical substitute. There's also all the referrals given inside and outside, RGI and RGO, by the way. RG stands for referrals given. So those are the referrals that you have passed to other members of your chapter. I and O stands for inside and outside. Inside referrals are when you refer yourself personally to another member of your chapter. Or a referral received inside is when somebody else from the chapter refers themselves to you for your services. An outside referral is one where we're introduced to somebody else out there in the great big world. So it could be a colleague, a friend, an associate, an aunt, an uncle, a family member, a spouse, a client, anybody that we introduce to our fellow chapter members that's outside of our immediate chapter circle of referral partners. That would be an outside referral. V stands for visitors, one-to-ones are the one-to-one meetings that you have. TYFCB stands for thank you for closed business. In other words, when somebody has said thank you to you for generating that much money for your business. And finally, we have CEUs, which are chapter education units. Make sure you do submit yourself a CEU slip for today's session, by the way. And if we scroll down, we can see week by week all of that activity. And this is really useful because let's say that you were accidentally marked as absent. Well, you can go back and let your vice president know, hey, you know what, on August 20th, I really don't think I was absent. I was supposed to have a sub that day. Can you please correct that in the system? Now, if you actually weren't there and your sub maybe didn't show up that day, then of course they would leave it there. But if it is a mistake, they can go back and correct it. It really helps the vice president to know which week had the problem. Down at the bottom, you'll also see how many people you have sponsored into various chapters and any training that you have attended. All right, so in order to look at some of the other things that I wanted to show you guys today, we are going to have to go beyond the home screen now. A lot of people say, well, you know, I don't really know where to find stuff in BNI Connect. I don't know where to go. Well, to get to some of these other places, we do have to use these menus at the top. We have network operations and reports. And depending on your role, if you happen to be, let's say, a chapter webmaster or on the leadership team, you might also see tools and admin. But today we're going to concentrate just on network operations and reports, which really has 90% of the things that you'll be looking for. Network is always going to be all of the networking components. So the connections and the groups and the testimonials. That's all under network. Operations is where you go to enter stuff. It's the day-to-day operations of running a chapter. So there's a lot of leadership team tools that are in that particular area, but there's a couple of things that are useful to everyday members like you and myself. Reports is where we're going to go when we want to find information. We want to get statistics back out of BNI Connect. So really, operations is largely input and to do stuff. Reports is to get stuff back out. So let's take a look under the operations menu first. And if we go to operations chapter, let's take a look at the different things that we can see. Now, along the left-hand side, what you're going to see is the different options like managing visitors and meeting management and manage members. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see some sub-items as part of that. Let me take a quick second to tell you how permissions work in BNI Connect. So you may not be seeing right now everything that I see on my screen. That's because I have some pretty high-level access to BNI Connect. So depending on whether you're a member or whether you are a leadership team or a visitor host or whatever else it might be, will depend on what you can actually see in BNI Connect. So for example, under Manage Visitors, most people will only see register a prospective visitor, which allows you to go in and let's say that somebody wants to come visit your chapter. You invited them to come visit and they say, yes, I would like to come visit the chapter. You can go in and register them for the upcoming meeting, which means they'll get an email saying, congratulations, we look forward to meeting you. And then they'll get a reminder and they'll get a follow-up later. So that's just one example. Now, there's a couple of things under here that I think most members find really helpful. The first of which I want to show you, it's going to be under Create Email. And there's a couple of tools under here. The first of which is Email My Chapter. Now, a lot of times, before BNI Connect, even when I was on the leadership team before BNI Connect existed, it was always a struggle for me to try to send an email out to my chapter or send a message or a communications out to my chapter. I'd always end up going to like my old email and hitting reply all to whatever the last group message was. And you know what? It never went to the right people. There was always somebody missing off the list, or there was somebody that, just joined the chapter or just left the chapter. What this does is this will give you the most current distribution list for your chapter. So what we can do now is I can highlight this, copy it, and then I can start up my own email program. I happen to use Outlook, so I can go in and put everybody into the BCC line. I do recommend you put everybody in the BCC line. I can then type out the message and send it along. And this way, I always am sure that it's going to the right people. Now, I do say to put things in the BCC line. That's just out of respect to all my fellow chapter members, so that if this email gets forwarded on beyond that person, they won't have the whole list of email addresses. And it also cuts down on some of the, some of the chatter. Everybody ended up hitting reply all, and they say, yeah, I got this. Yeah, I got this. So I do recommend putting people in the BCC line. The other tool that's really useful under here is to be able to email a visitor invitation. Now, we're going to go into detail about this tomorrow, but in case you're not able to join us for tomorrow's webinar, I think this is a really great tool for everybody to be familiar with. And what this does is it gives you the ability to email an invitation to a potential chapter visitor. One of the things that we often struggle with, especially as new members, is that we're not really sure how to invite somebody to BNI. What do we say to them? What are the words that we use to invite them? And, oh, you know what? I don't remember what the address is for the chapter meeting and things like that. And this will help you to automatically put all the right information into that invitation without having to remember it all. So the way it works is you click Email Visitor Invitation. And all we have to do is to fill out a couple of lines here. The rest will be automatically done by BNI Connect. So let's say that I'd like to invite somebody to the chapter. I'm going to invite John Smith from Smith Co. And I need to put his email address in. Now, what I'm going to do to show you guys how this works, and you are welcome to try this as well, I'm going to put my own email address in here so that the email comes to me. So I'm going to put in support@bniconnect.com. That way I'll get a copy of it and I can see what the message looks like that I'll be sending out to future visitors. So if you'd like to test this out, just send an invitation to yourself. The personal message is going to be the first paragraph of whatever message you send out. So it's your opportunity to really introduce yourself to that visitor, or make them feel like this is a real live message, not just some automated thing. Now, I personally tend to use this as really my second invitation. So if I'm out at a networking event and I meet somebody and say, hey, you know what, how'd you like to come to my chapter meeting? Say, oh yeah, sure. Well, do you mind if I send you an invitation? And then I'll send them this invitation. And that way, the first paragraph of this is going to be a little bit more personal. I can say, hey, you know what, it was great meeting you at the networking event, or thanks for agreeing to come meet my referral partners. And the rest of it will be filled out. So I'm going to say something like, it's going to end up saying, Dear John, it was great meeting you at the Chamber networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral partners. Okay, then I'm just going to click send. It's going to take all that information, wrap it up into a nice little neat package, put a bow on top, and it's going to send that to the email address I provided. And I did just receive this right away. And it says, Dear John, it was great meeting you at the Chamber networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral partners. It then puts in the chapter information. You're cordially invited to the BNI Wakefield chapter, which is the chapter that I belong to. And we meet at the Elks Club at 60 Belmont Ave in Wakefield, Rhode Island on Thursdays at 7 a.m. So all of that information is input automatically. It then briefly describes what BNI is all about. We're a business and professional networking organization. Lets them know that we're looking for somebody in their profession. and to please RSVP with you if they would like to attend the meeting. And by the way, if they hit reply, notice that this is going back to my email address. So that is my email address on record with BNI Connect, support@bniconnect.com. So it's going to reply back to me. Now there's no reports or sent items or anything else like that. It's just a means of getting a branded, well-worded invitation out to a potential visitor. Now there's some other great tools under here that you may find useful depending on your level of access. One thing that a lot of chapters utilize is the goals program. So check out and you can view your chapter goals. Most of the time, just the leadership team can enter them, but you can follow along throughout the year to see how you're doing with the goals by clicking on View Chapter Goals. And of course, as we're going to discuss tomorrow, there's a lot of stuff that we can do with visitors. After that person has RSVP'd with you to say, yes, I do want to come to the meeting, make sure that you register them for the upcoming meeting. But again, I'll go into more detail about that tomorrow. Let's take a look at some reports, and there are a ton of the reports in the system. So I'm going to go to reports, and I'm going to go to the chapter level reports here. Now, one thing you'll see is that there is a whole list of reports here. Now, I am not going to have time today to go through all of them and still try to finish for you guys at the bottom of the hour. However, if you have questions on any of the other ones when we're finished, I am more than happy to go through any and all of them for those that would like to hang out longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight a couple of my favorite reports, about a half a dozen of my favorite reports that are in the system, and show you what they're all about. But again, if you have questions on any of the other ones or any of the other ones kind of catch your eye or pique your interest, just let me know. All right, so the first one I want to show you guys is the chapter roster report. And the chapter roster report, yeah, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. It just is going to have the current roster of your chapter. So it's going to show you how many members you have and then all of the member names, what their industry is, what their company is, the phone number to get in touch with them, as well as basically a short version of their POMS report for the last 90 days. So this is a great, useful report that you can just jump right into. Now at the top of this report is some important information as well. It's going to show you the number of members in the chapter, but above that, this is all of the leadership team positions. And that's really important for a couple of reasons. If you have a question for the membership committee, or you'd like to get in touch with your director consultant, here's where you can find their contact information. If I needed to get in touch with John Lucas, my director consultant for my chapter, I can look up his phone number really quickly, even without necessarily knowing his name. Same thing for membership committee, or you have a great idea for the education coordinator. The other thing for this is that you may be saying, you know what, that whole visitor thing from before. Yeah, I was told I was a visitor host, but I don't have access to all of those other functions that were in there. This will show you if you are not listed here as the visitor host or the secretary or the membership committee, you may not have access yet to those other special functions. So if you don't see yourself listed here, please do contact your director consultant or your regional office, and they can make sure that you get assigned correctly, and therefore you'll start getting some of those additional permissions. All right, so that's the chapter roster report. Now skipping down a couple, I want to have a look at the meeting notes report. And the meeting notes report, I feel, is a very important report because it can help you to give more referrals. That's right, it'll help you to give more referrals. After all, this is about givers gain. And when I click on Go under the meeting notes report, it's a very, very simple report. Matter of fact, it's pretty much the roster report with less information on it. What's great about this report is it's designed to give you the person's name and the company and then a blank space in order to take notes. So one of the best ways we can increase the number of referrals that we give in BNI is to really pay attention and write down what people are asking for during their weekly presentations. Most of the times referrals don't happen right away. So, somebody might be asking at the meeting to be introduced to John Smith, but it may be 2 or 3 or 4 weeks before I get in touch with John Smith. So this helps me to remember that. It also helps me to file some of this information away. I can save this piece of paper. I can take these notes electronically if I'd like to, all by having this notes report. Now you can print this out. As with all the reports, you can print them. And then I have a sheet for taking notes at the meeting. Now, if you're saying, you know what, I can't write that small, I need more space to take notes, or it seems like a lot of wasted paper, whatever else you'd like to do, or I want to take notes electronically. What you can also do with just about every report in the system is to export the report. Now, there's 2 buttons at the top here. There's export, and then there's export without headers. Now, the export, what that does is it gives you everything on this sheet. So when I open up this exported report, what we'll see here is the exported report. There's the report out in Excel. So what's funky though about this is that it has the information I need, but it has all this header information at the top too. And one thing you'll notice is that there's all these merged cells, which means resizing columns and things like that can be a pain in the neck. So there is this other option to export without headers, and what that does is it just gives you the information that's in the data portion of the report. So this really means that we can resize columns a little bit better. So let's say you want more room for the notes field, you can do that. By the way, this is nothing to do with BNI Connect, just a little Excel tip. One of my absolute favorite buttons in Microsoft Excel is this here that says Format as Table. Format as Table. And if you click this, you can choose a color scheme. I think it's a green kind of day. And it will format this whole table with the opposite colored lines. And even better, it has the drop-down boxes. So let's say I'd like to sort this by first name instead of last name. I can just click this drop-down box and sort by first name A to Z. And this allows me to really play with that data. I can also say, let's say I want more room to take notes. I can make all of those notes fields bigger if I'd like to, or change the formatting or the size or whatever else I'd like to do. Or I can just save this file and take notes electronically. So all these things are available with the meeting notes report. And even if you end up writing down the information and you leave it on the front seat of your car or you throw it away, the act of writing and the act of recording what people are asking for will help to make it stick in your brain for the rest of the week. Now, the Summary POMS report, I remember before BNI Connect, I've been a member since 2002, so that predated BNI Connect by quite some time. If I wanted to know my own statistics or I wanted to know how my chapter was doing, I used to have to wait until the vice president or somebody on the leadership team or the director consultant or somebody brought a report to the meeting. Now I have that information at my fingertips anytime I want to. So I can always go to the Summary POMS report and see how my chapter's doing. Now it's going to show me by default the last 6 months, so the last completed 6 months, so through the end of last month. But I can change this to any time frame I want to. I mean, I can go back to 2002 when my chapter first formed, or when I first joined the chapter for that matter. And if I'd like to, I can even go through the current day. So let's say I want to look at the entire history of my chapter. I can do that. Now, once I click go, it's going to go and start going through all the individual POMS reports for the last 15 years and putting that data for me. So I can see here, here's all the current members of our chapter and what their contributions were over that time period. And of course, POMS present, absent, late medical substitute. RG is referrals given inside and outside. RR, referrals received inside and outside. We also have visitors, one-to-ones, thank you for closed business, and CEUs. So you can really review this information. Now you'll notice that, I mean, I ran this report back to 1992, even before my chapter existed. It, by default, is only going to show me the current members of the chapter. It will, however, include all of the history of everybody that's ever been in the chapter. If I want to actually see the dropped member names, I can do that by selecting this box, Show Dropped Member Names, and it will, the totals will end up being the same, but now this will show every single person that has ever been a member of the chapter. And it's sometimes good to look through that to see members that you may want to reconnect with that might have left the chapter at some point. All right, I'm going to bump down a couple here to the classifications not in chapter. And this report's a nifty little report. What this is going to tell us is, basically, this is what openings do I have in my chapter? And if I click go, it's going to show me a really, really, really long list because there's like 500 different individual classifications in BNI Connect. I mean, there's pages and pages and pages of them. Attorney elder law and monuments and counseling services and high-risk health specialist and underwater basket weaver and mobile apps and engineering, all of these different categories, there's at least one of them somewhere in BNI. But what this also tells us is the number of chapters in my area. So in the great state of Rhode Island here, it shows me how many chapters have this classification already. So I can see, for example, our chapter doesn't have somebody that does printing. And I can confirm that. We do not have anybody in the printing category right now. However, it's telling me that there's 7 other chapters in Rhode Island that do already have a printer. And that tells me a couple of things. If I'm going to go looking out to invite people, maybe I want to consider inviting a printer. Because I can say to that printer, yeah, you know, printer is a pretty popular category in BNI. You know, there's at least 7 other printers just in this area that are having success in BNI. It also means you're not competing against those other chapters. Other things you may want to do is to go and visit one of those chapters and say, hey, you guys already have a printer. Do they have somebody in their company or a colleague that would like to come and visit our chapter? One thing to keep in mind with this, however, is that there are some distinctions. So, for example, there is a classification called mortgages. Now, we do have a mortgage person in our chapter. They happen to do residential mortgage. So they're listed here in BNI Connect as doing residential mortgages as opposed to the bigger category of mortgages. So you do have to keep in mind that there may be some just inherent, I don't want to call them conflicts, but confusions between categories when looking at this report, so something to keep in mind. But it is still a very useful report, especially for jogging your memory of all of the different possibilities of jobs and careers and classifications that out there that have or do currently exist in BNI. All right, scrolling down the list, you can see the Personal Palms report. This is the same report that you have on your home screen, except you can run this for any member of your chapter or yourself for any period of time. So the one on the home screen is automatically set just to go to you for 1 year. Here you can view it for any member of your chapter and for any period of time. All right, and the final report I want to show you real quick is the member details report. Now, think back to your member success program, assuming you've been to a member success program recently. One of the things that we're taught in the member success program is that we should be doing what we call a gains exchange before we have a one-to-one meeting with someone. And that helps us to really start the conversation off on a much deeper level than just, you know, chit-chatting about the weather or the local sports team and how they did last night. By reviewing somebody's gains, which is goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills, we can find things to talk about that are much more meaningful. So you can do this by going to the member details report, and you can view the member gains of anybody else in your chapter. And this will allow you to view their gains or their bio. You can also switch over to, let's say, their TOPS profile, their bio, and review any of that information. Of course, you can print it out because trying to print out their profile never looks right. So this is a great way to be able to do that. All right, now we are at the bottom of the hour. There's just one last thing that I want to show you. Now that you started moving around in the system and navigating some of the reports and navigating some of the tools, one of the things you can do is to create your own custom shortcut menus. Now you'll see here on the home page that we have My BNI Business. We also have My Network, which takes you over to the networking page. And below that, you should have Chapter. And what this is this is your own personal shortcut menu of your favorite tools so that you don't have to go looking through the menus for them. And this is a customizable list. So I can click on, for example, Configure. Now all the stuff on the left is my current list of things that I want easy access to. Over on the right is everything that I have access to but am not using in my shortcut list. So for example, I could go to email a visitor invitation, and let's say that I want to also be able to, I don't know, I'm going to say register a prospective visitor. So I can just start typing at the top. So I'm going to register a prospective visitor. So now I have these in here. So what I want to do, I'm going to move that to the top of the list, email a visitor invitation, and then register them. So I'm going to move that up here. I'm going to save this. And now I can close this out. And when I go back to my home screen, you'll see that my menu items have changed here, email visitor invitation. So instead of having to go to operations, chapter, create email, email visitor invitation, I can just click on email visitor invitation and it pops right up with only one click instead of 4 or 5 clicks. All right, so that, my friends, is the tools and reports that are available to members here in BNI Connect. And please do feel free to poke around, especially with the reports, because there's really nothing you could break in the reports. Feel free to look around, click on the reports, look through them. There's lots and lots of great information in the speaker report and the absence report and the visitor registration report, all sorts of stuff. That's just an enhancement to your membership. So what I'd like to do now is to open this up to any questions that anybody might have. Please type those questions into the questions panel. I'll see them pop up on my screen and I'll be able to answer them for you. While you're thinking of any questions, just a reminder, this is being recorded. You'll be able to review this on the support site. So just click on this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner. Or by the way, anything that you might be questioning as to various tools and functions, if you see a little question mark in front of it, for example, for the email my chapter function, I can click that little question mark and it'll take me over to the support site and the specific article for that function. You can always share these. If this is a tool that you'd like to be able to share with the rest of your chapter and say, hey, you should really try using this, you can always send them the link to this help article in order to be able to show them how to do it. All right, just so you know, a good referral for me, if you go to the support site and take a look at the upcoming webinars, a good referral for me is to please recommend these webinars to other chapter members and new members that join your chapter or other people in your region. Our very next webinar is going to be tomorrow at this same time at 3 o'clock Eastern time, which is noon Pacific time or 8 p.m. UK time. We also have a whole series of leadership team webinars coming up over the next couple of weeks, so please do register for those if you are on the leadership team. All right, if there are no questions today, what I'm going to do is say thank you guys so much for being here with me and spending this half hour. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and happy connecting, everyone.